Have you ever left a conversation feeling strangely heavy? Like something inside you was disturbed, but you couldn't explain exactly why? Maybe you replayed the conversation again and again in your mind. You thought, did I say something wrong? Did I overreact? Or maybe you ended up apologizing, even though deep down you felt you had done nothing wrong. If that has ever happened to you, then listen carefully, because you might have experienced something many people face every day without realizing it. Manipulation. Not the obvious kind. Not the kind you see in movies where someone openly controls others, but the quiet kind, the subtle kind, the kind that slowly changes how you think, how you feel, and even how you see yourself. This is where the world of dark psychology begins. Dark psychology is simply the understanding of how some people use psychological techniques to influence, control, and manipulate others for their own benefit. And the truth is, it happens more often than we think. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who always seems incredibly charming at first? They say all the right things. They make you feel important. They make you feel seen. Maybe they tell you things like, "You're different from everyone else. I feel like I can tell you anything. I've never met someone who understands me the way you do." At first, it feels amazing. Who wouldn't want to hear things like that? But sometimes, this overwhelming kindness is not genuine. Sometimes it's a strategy. There's a manipulation tactic called love bombing. Love bombing is when someone gives you intense attention, affection, and compliments very quickly. It can feel exciting. It can feel magical. You may even start thinking you found someone truly special. But here's the hidden danger. This intense affection creates emotional attachment very fast. And once you become emotionally invested, things begin to change. The compliments slowly turn into criticism. The attention slowly disappears. The warmth becomes cold distance. And suddenly, you find yourself trying harder and harder to bring back the person they were in the beginning. You send longer messages. You give more time. You become more patient. You start adjusting yourself just to make things work. But here's the truth many people don't realize. The person you are chasing might never have truly existed. Because sometimes, that perfect version was only created to gain your trust. Now let's talk about another powerful manipulation tactic. One that can deeply affect your confidence. It's called gaslighting. Gaslighting is when someone makes you question your own memory, perception, or feelings. Imagine this situation. Someone says something hurtful to you. You remember it clearly. Later, when you bring it up, they say something like, "I never said that. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. You always misunderstand me." At first, you might defend yourself. You explain what you heard. But if it keeps happening again and again, something inside you begins to change. You start doubting yourself. You think, maybe I really misunderstood. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm just too emotional. And that's exactly what the manipulator wants. Because when you stop trusting your own judgment, you become easier to control. Now here's something interesting. Manipulation doesn't always come through harsh words. Sometimes it comes through guilt. Have you ever heard someone say things like, "After everything I've done for you, I guess I care more about this than you do. I thought you were different." Statements like these create emotional pressure. Suddenly, you feel like the bad person. You feel selfish. You feel responsible for their feelings, even when you did nothing wrong. This is called guilt manipulation. And it works because many good-hearted people hate disappointing others. Manipulators understand this. They know that if they trigger your guilt, they can influence your decisions. But here's the powerful truth. Kindness should never be used as a weapon. If someone constantly uses guilt to control your choices, that is not love. That is control. Now here's a very important question. Why do manipulators often target certain people? Why not manipulate everyone? The answer is surprisingly simple. Manipulators often choose people who are kind, empathetic, and understanding. People who care deeply about relationships. People who give second chances. People who try to see the good in others. In other words, good people. Because empathetic people tend to forgive easily. They try to understand the other person's struggles. They make excuses for bad behavior. They say things like, Maybe they're just stressed. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe things will change. But manipulation often depends on this hope. Because as long as you keep hoping, you keep staying. And as long as you keep staying, the manipulator keeps control. But the moment awareness enters your mind, everything begins to change. You start noticing patterns. You start observing behavior instead of just listening to words. You ask yourself deeper questions. Why do I feel drained after talking to this person? Why do I always end up apologizing? Why do my boundaries disappear around them? These questions are powerful because manipulation thrives in confusion, but awareness creates clarity, and clarity weakens manipulation. So, how do you protect yourself? How do you stop falling into these psychological traps? The first step is learning to trust your own feelings again. If someone consistently leaves you feeling uncomfortable, anxious, or emotionally exhausted, pay attention to that. Your emotions are signals. They are telling you something important. Ignoring them only gives manipulators more space to operate. The second step is boundaries. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear being seen as rude or selfish. But boundaries are not acts of aggression. They are acts of self-respect. A boundary can be as simple as saying, "I'm not comfortable with that. I need time to think about it. I can't do that right now." You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to defend your decision. Healthy people respect boundaries. Manipulators resist them. And when someone reacts angrily to your boundary, that reaction reveals something important. It shows that they benefited from your lack of boundaries before. The third step is slowing down emotional decisions. Manipulation often works by creating urgency. Someone might say, "Decide now. If you cared about me, you would do it. You're overthinking this." But pressure is a warning sign. Healthy decisions don't need pressure. When you slow down, you give yourself space to think clearly. You observe actions instead of promises. You notice consistency, or the lack of it, because manipulators can be very persuasive with words, but their behavior often tells a different story. Now here's something many people struggle to accept. You cannot change a manipulator simply by loving them more. You cannot fix their behavior by sacrificing your peace. And you cannot heal someone who refuses to recognize their actions. Real change requires responsibility. Without responsibility, nothing improves. Sometimes the strongest choice is not fighting harder. Sometimes the strongest choice is stepping away. Distance can be one of the most powerful forms of protection. Not revenge, not arguments, just distance. And yes, that can be painful, because walking away from manipulation often means letting go of the person you hoped they could become. But protecting your peace is not selfish. It's necessary. Your emotional well-being matters. Your time matters. Your energy matters. You deserve relationships where you feel safe to express yourself, where you don't feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, where you don't feel confused about your own thoughts and feelings. Real connection does not rely on control. Real connection does not rely on guilt. Real connection does not make you feel smaller. Real connection feels balanced. It feels calm. It feels safe. And once you experience healthy relationships, something interesting happens. Drama stops feeling attractive. Chaos stops feeling normal. Manipulation becomes easier to recognize. You begin to value peace more than emotional games. You begin to respect yourself enough to walk away from situations that drain your spirit. And that is where true strength begins. So the next time someone tries to twist your words, the next time someone makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, the next time someone makes you question your own reality, pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself one powerful question. Am I being respected, or am I being controlled? Because once you start asking that question honestly, you will see manipulation for what it truly is. And the moment you see it clearly, it starts losing its power over you forever. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.